Rice being back in here is super interesting. If Rashee Rice is going to evolve his game, I think he will become this type of player, like this archetype. He's going to have to go that Amon-Ra St. Brown type of journey here.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
I think Kansas City somehow is like, I don't know how, but Kansas City is like fallen under the radar offensively. Like, let's be real here, right? Like, they're getting healthy, right? Xavier Worthy's healthy. Hollywood Brown is healthy. They're getting Rashee Rice back. I think Patrick Mahomes is playing at a pretty high level. Is he playing perfectly? No, but I think he's playing at a pretty high level. It's funny to me that I think we've become so desensitized to Patrick Mahomes and like how well he plays and this offense that we never talk about how this offense is doing other than to say either A, they're cheating, or B, they're not good. Right. But right now, I would say, Matt, that they are pretty good. This is a good, like, not just a good offense, like a potentially great offense, especially with the return of Rashee Rice.
Right. The Rice return is a critical factor in all of this. I think that part of the reason that maybe there is still some maybe skepticism about the Chiefs is just record wise. They're 3-3. You know, they're sitting at 500. Two teams in their division are 4-2, LA and Denver. The Chargers have a 3-0 record in the division already. So one of those games being the week 1 opener over there in Brazil on the opener there. So, I mean, that's one of them that's over Kansas City. That's one of the wins that they've got in the division. So I think maybe there's just that level of skepticism right now about Kansas City just because of the record and where they are. They're sitting at 500. They're usually like coasting record-wise right now. But it's weird because, yeah, usually they're coasting record-wise, but it doesn't feel great. Right now, the record's whatever, but I think it feels really good on offense right now, if that makes sense, specifically offensively. And we could talk about some of what they have done so far and how that may or may not change with Rice coming back. But man, yeah, Rice being back in here is super interesting. So just revisiting his 2024 profile now that he is about to get back on the field for people that didn't listen to us in the offseason. Rashee Rice, I think it's worth taking it all the way back to the prospect profile where he was this perimeter, you know, pure outside one side of the field player who ran a bunch of goes and curls at SMU and frankly wasn't very good in that role. He was a prospect I was not very high on. Got that wrong because Andy Reid essentially took that player and completely flipped his usage around in Kansas City. He's been a slot heavy guy and he's run a lot of in-breaking routes, specifically stuff underneath. You know, his air yards per target last year was sub 6.0. That's part of what's interesting to talk about him this year is because last season, again, it's like 3.1 games that he played last year. The better he was hurt after, I think, 4 routes in week number 4 last season, but primarily running 36.7% slants, 13.3% dig routes. So a lot of over the middle of the field work. And he was awesome against zone coverage. Again, it's a small sample, but 99th percentile success rate versus zone, 89.8% last season for Rashee Rice. And, you know, that success rate versus zone coverage puts him up with like multiple Antonio Brown seasons. It puts him just behind Cooper Kupp's nuclear 2021 campaign. Small sample again. It's not quite as impressive as those because it didn't happen over the course of a full year. But getting that player back is pretty critical in and of itself before we even start talking about what if his game evolves in year 3.
Yeah, and again, I think when we start talking about how Rashee Rice fits in, I mean, again, he should slot in perfectly, right? Like, you know, Xavier Worthy adds a vertical element. Hollywood Brown adds an intermediate and vertical element. Travis Kelce, I think, still doesn't look very good, but that's okay. He's still out there.
Oh, he looks a little bit better this year than last year, you know.
Well, that's for sure. Oh, my gosh. Last year, my goodness gracious. I mean, he looked like a barn door out there. I don't, yeah. That is not the Travis Kelce I know and love, man. He looks definitely more in shape. But for whatever reason, he still looks a little, oh man, age is catching up, man. Father time, as they say, is undefeated. You know what I'm saying? Like his hands are a little bit shakier this year too, which is a little bit odd. So yeah, I think Kelce still is not the Kelsey of old, but he's still look, semi-reliable tight end target out there, and obviously Patrick Mahomes trust him. I'll also say this too. Vastly underreported is the fact that Isaiah Pacheco's running the ball a lot better. You know what I mean? Like early in the season, I thought he looked bad. I thought he was in the dirt. I mean, after week 2 against Philadelphia, I was like, oh man, this is not good. He had 10 carries for 22 yards. Dude, the last 4 games here, he's running over 4.6 yards per carry. He's playing a lot more, and I think he's starting to get some of that, angry downhill running back a little bit too. I'm telling you, this offense, especially over the last couple of weeks, has looked a lot better, and I just don't think, Matt, that they're getting enough credit for it.
I think that's fair. And for Pacheco, he's still kind of annoying for fantasy because Kareem Hunt is there. And Kareem Hunt makes
around the goal line.
Around the goal line and
why?
like long down and distance situations. They're also trying to mix in Brashard Smith in very when he's on the field, they're throwing him a pass. He's not really a running back. He's just kind of a receiving option for them. But yeah, that stinks for Pacheco from a fantasy perspective. But I agree with you that he added a real deal plus asset in the run game this past week, where they just kind of got under center and ran downhill, which the Chiefs never do. They always are a little bit too cutesy in the run game. It's like you got a big offensive line that you've invested a lot of resources in.
Yep.
Get Mahomes under center and hand that ball off and pound it a little bit. And they were doing that last week. Very good run game for them last week. So that's good to see. And that, again, should only open up the middle of the field, which right now, Patrick Mahomes, in terms of guys that have thrown 20-plus passes, 10-plus air yards, and between the numbers this year, it goes Sam Darnold, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and Matthew Stafford. So, those are – and think about some of the receivers that I just listed off there, right? Like Sam Darnold, JSN. Baker Mayfield, it wasn't Emeka Egbuka. We'll talk about him later on the show, the injury there, but it was Emeka Egbuka. Jared Goff is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Matthew Stafford, it's Puka Nacua. The one guy who doesn't really have a receiver of that archetype is Patrick Mahomes, which bears itself out in the numbers. He has only 12 completions in this area. He's attempted 21 passes. He's completed 57% of those, but he's been very efficient because they've hit on some bigger plays, like deep down the field. But now I think they might have a guy who can eat in this area. Like as we're talking, and I feel like you and I have been having this conversation extensively, and I've had it now in other places over the last couple of years. It's this evolving archetype of wide receiver, right? It's these the big guys that kind of blur the line between slot, outside receiver. They win against zone coverage. They're fearless over the middle of the field. It's your Pukas, it's your St. Browns. JSN, not quite this player because he's absolutely smoking man coverage on the outside, and he's always been a great man beater, but still kind of fits into this bunch. Emeka Egbuka definitely fits into this bunch. If Rashee Rice is going to evolve his game, I think he will become this type of player, like this archetype. He's going to have to go that Amon-Ra St. Brown type of journey here. And again, we just don't know because we didn't see it over the course of a full season last year, but it was kind of trending this way, right? Where after his first season, he's used as mostly a slot guy underneath. Then this at the beginning of last year, again, he's getting peppered still on these quick in breaking routes against zone coverage. What I'm looking for here in year 3 is, can he take that jump that Puka has taken, that St. Brown has taken, where they are much better against press coverage and releasing off the line in these one-on-one situations, so that he can have a more expanded route tree as opposed to just kind of, we've joked about it, the route bush, the route shrub. Can he expand that route tree to be more of a true number one receiver? He's gotten the volume of a number one receiver. He's gotten some of the efficiency metrics of a number one receiver, but I'm talking like multi-alignment impact on the game and being able to show up against man coverage in these isolated situations. That's how those guys have all graduated. Mahomes is already efficient throwing into this area. Can we now get more volume into this area? And can Rashee Rice be the one to unlock it? I think that's like one of the biggest storylines here of week 7.
So going into week number 7, over the last 4 weeks, going back to week number 3, starting in week number 3, Kansas City has the 8th highest EPA per drop back. Okay. So, and again, keep in mind, this is a game where, Worthy missed some time there. Hollywood Brown has been nicked up too. I'm seeing a lot from Patrick Mahomes that, again, I mean, I don't want to go this whole Chris Collinsworth route, but I'm just saying, like, here's a guy. Like, no, I mean, listen, Patrick Mahomes is playing, I think, extremely well. And I think it's being underreported because, we're just so used to either down talking the Chiefs or talking about how they're cheating or the refs are in their bag, whatever. But the bottom line is I think they've been playing really well offensively, both in a pass game and from a running perspective as well. The last thing I want to say, though, Matt, again, I hate being this Debbie Downer guy, because I like talking about upside too, but it is fair to point out that Rashee Rice has not played football for over a calendar year.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
He's coming back from an injury, right? He has that suspension, right? And maybe if I'm putting on my rose-colored glasses here, maybe the suspension is a, blessing in disguise for the football, not in real life, but for football, because he had extra time to recover from his injury as well. So maybe he comes back fresh, but it is worth noting that he has not played football for over a calendar year. And I've always said, I just don't think it's realistic to ask guys, unless you're just a crazy special athlete. Not that fair to ask guys that have not played for, professional football for this long to come back in and expect them to perform like we last saw them. And the last time we saw Rashee Rice was playing at this really high level, getting away, breaking tackles, getting away from tacklers, doing all these things. I would just say I have a little bit of hesitation in that regard.
Oh, totally fair. And I agree with you. And I think this would have definitely been true if we're playing in week 1, right? Where I always come back to the Tank Dell example from last year. And, we talked about this on our show last year where it was, what's going on with Tank Dell? Why isn't Tank Dell producing? And I'm like, I'm watching this guy wearing number 3 for the Houston Texans, and he might have Dell on the back of his jersey, but he's not 100%. Playing like Tank Dell in his rookie year. And people wanted to yada that injury because, look, he's fully participating in training camp, and look at these Instagram videos of him running routes. Like, okay, well, that's just different than playing in an NFL game. And right. I think you felt that earlier. It was right around this time last year, to be fair, that then Tank Dell kind of started to pick it up a little bit, and started to look a little bit more like himself. So there's definitely an argument to be made that these 6 games where Rashee Rice has been justifiably serving a suspension, I think some of the Chiefs players wearing like free 4 t-shirts it's like, boys, you're not covering yourself in a lot of glory on that one. Let's put it that way. But that this 6 weeks where he's been serving the suspension actually might be good, that he's gotten some time to fully get a little healthier, a little bit back into shape. But there's no way to get in football shape without playing football. So that's all. It's totally 100% fair for you to point out. And I think we'll know early on. The Chiefs definitely, they're telling everybody, we can't wait to get this guy out there. We can't wait. The Chris Collinsworth said that they believe, and they're on the Sunday night game last week, that they believe this version of the team is better than the version of the team that went to the Super Bowl last year, which I know sounds crazy because that team went to the Super Bowl. They were better in the regular season record wise than where this team is right now. But I would agree, if Rashee Rice is the player that he could be, he is supposed to be, this, crazy zone beater, and maybe develops a little more, I definitely think they can be that. Yeah. But, we'll know for sure if they really not believe that long-term about Rice, but how they think about him physically based on what he looks like. How involved is he? Is he running a full complement of routes in game number 1? Is he getting 8 to 10 targets right off the bus? That will be important to know. But definitely, I think my last point on him is just he fits into this wide receiver archetype that we're talking about, where these are the guys that are among the most productive wideouts in the league right now, and if he takes a couple of steps forward, I do think there needs to be a step forward taken. Can't stagnate on who he's been in his first 2 years to be one of those guys consistently. We've got to see those steps. If we do, he can be kind of that next guy in line here, because I do think there is also, whereas Rice is a great player, but he has been mostly a short air yards per target guy. Again, under 6.0 is just untenable. And as we've all been complaining about, why don't the Chiefs push the ball to the field, or why don't the Chiefs push the ball downfield? The high target, you can't say that and then also be like, yeah, Rashee Rice gets 12 targets a game or something like that, because those were the type of targets he was getting. We want to see him get different types of targets, more 10-plus air yards over the middle of the field. I think he's capable of being that player. We got to see it over the course of a full season. I'm excited to start seeing it here pretty soon.